Hey, all you rock and rollers out there. Welcome to episode 40 of the Fortress of Rock. I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Glad to have you aboard here. May the 20th, 2022. As always, we open up with news of the world, our tribute to Queen and Freddie Mercury. There is not a lot in terms of rock news that I feel worthy of discussing this week, so we're going to try something a little bit different. I'll cover the few topics I have in rock news, and then we're going to shift part of our retrospective segment, which is usually segment 3, the birthdays. We're going to move that up here to segment 1 to try to fill in a little bit, balance things out. So stay tuned for that here in just a few minutes. First and foremost, again, COVID is rearing its ugly head still, and I wish we would just get over this. Treat it like the flu. Realize it's going to be with us probably forever. Yes, get your shots just like you would with the flu. Yes, take care of yourself. Wash your hands. But ironically, Eric Clapton had to cancel 2 shows at minimum. I have not heard if they have added on to that, but Slowhand had to cancel a couple shows because he came down with COVID. And of course, the ironic part of this is that Mr. Clapton did not like venues that were forcing people to show proof of vaccination in order to get in to see a show. He said he would cancel any show at any venue where they did require proof of vaccination. There's your irony. So Mr. Clapton comes down with COVID, ends up canceling shows. Pearl Jam has tried to soldier through. Initially, their drummer, Matt Cameron, came down with COVID. They were filling in for him with a variety of drummers. I believe they brought back their original drummer from before they even got a recording contract. And then they brought in, I believe, a young fan at one point to sit in. But now they have also had to cancel a couple shows at minimum because now Jeff Ament has come down with COVID as well. Again, I've got enough shows lined up this summer. I've got about 6 or 7 left. Haven't been buying a lot of tickets lately because I'm very cautious about this latest surge and what's going on here. But a couple of these shows that I've got this summer are shows that have been postponed multiple times involving older artists, Billy Joel, the Doobie Brothers. I will go absolutely nuts if they cancel or postpone those shows again. The only other little tidbit I've got here is some minor news circulating around the big Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Poison, Joan Jett stadium tour coming up here. Finally, again, another COVID postponement that hopefully is going to launch and carry all the way through without postponements, without cancellations from summer into the fall. We talked about the Joan Jett, Ted Nugent brouhaha. Quiet on the Poison front. Def Leppard, of course. Diamond Star Halos coming out here in a couple weeks. Looking forward to that. New single, 3rd single off the album. Fire It Up just came out. And then as far as the crew goes, Vince Neil makes an appearance on the song Classless Act by the group Classless Act. And I just found out that this will be the opening band for this Monster Stadium tour with the crew, Def Leppard, Poison, and Joan Jett. I will have to listen to Classless Act and let you know what I think. Not promising a full review, but their album Welcome to the Show comes out June the 24th. So I'll have to listen to the song, watch the video for Classless Act, see if it's maybe something worth pursuing. Because, of course, you know, the Fortress has very high standards. I'm just saying. Okay, like I said, not a lot in terms of rock news this week, so we're shifting our birthdays up from the third segment to the first here. So the rock and roll birthdays of the week, of the day, I should say. May the 20th. First up is Joe Cocker. Of course, Joe Cocker passed away in 2014. I've never understood the appeal of Joe Cocker. He's one of those artists like the Grateful Dead, Dylan, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. I just always associate with overrated hippie garbage. Sorry, but I do. Yes, there are good songs, high points, high moments in there, but they are not the legends, at least to me, that critics in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame paint them out to be. And Joe Cocker is another one. Joe Cocker is known for a Beatles cover song, With a Little Help from My Friends, an awful power ballad that he sang with Jennifer Warnes. And to me, the fantastic John Belushi parody from Saturday Night Live. Are you really going to tell me a guy is an all-time great rock and roll star if a lot of us associate him the most with somebody making fun of him like John Belushi did on SNL? All the quirks, all the ticks. I get it. A lot of singers do that. A lot of singers have certain ways that they have to express themselves. I am not denigrating him for that in any way, shape, or form. I just never understood why he's considered such a rock and roll legend. Another star. We're not going to say rock and roll here, but another music star who was born on May the 20th is Cher. Born back in 1946 on this day. She is 76 years old. Of course, because of all the plastic surgery, you know, she still looks like she's maybe 50. They will not have to use embalming fluid on her because I've got to believe the stuff that's running through her veins, coursing through her system, will preserve her forever, especially her lips. I don't know what you want me to say about Cher. I've never taken her that seriously. You know, she's dabbled in acting. She's got an Oscar for Moonstruck. I've just, again, never understood the appeal of Cher. I thought she was good with Sonny Bono, back in the 70s when you had the variety shows like Sonny and Cher and Donnie and Marie. I found a lot of fun and appeal in those shows. But then, of course, Cher decided to turn the way of Madonna with the plastic surgery and the light, fluffy pop songs and the outrageous costumes, and basically trying to be bigger than a mortal human being with the ego running amok. I guess the one thing Cher had on Madonna is that Cher could at least kind of act, where Madonna could never pull that off. Finally, wrapping up the birthdays for this week's episode and wrapping up segment one, Jane Weedland, rhythm guitarist for the Go-Go's, born in 1958 on May the 20th, turned 64 years old today. Happy birthday to Jane. Now, anybody who knows me knows that I love the Go-Go's. But I'm going to go negative again. I know, shocking. I've been negative about Joe Cocker, been negative about Cher, so why not keep the trend going? Despite the fact that I love the Go-Go's. When I look at the Go-Go's in terms of the music, nobody's going to take away the fact that they were an all-female rock band, landmark, groundbreaking band. And you can argue with me, you can comment, check out the Facebook page for the Fortress of Rock, drop a comment there. The Go-Go's might have been a little bit overrated. And I think the thing is, their legend has grown over the past few decades. And I don't really understand why. Am I saying they're not worthy of being in the Rock Hall of Fame? No. No, I'm not saying that. They would probably be, though, at the bottom of a list of those who are worthy, who should be in. I would put the Go-Go's near the bottom. I've talked about some of the bands that I do not think should be in, and we're talking about rock only, of course. I've expressed over and over and over again, beat a dead horse when it comes to, I don't like country, I don't like rap and hip hop being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm just talking straight on rock and roll. The Pretenders are always the example for me. The Pretenders are always the band that I look at and go, I don't understand why they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when I could pick out at least a dozen, 15, 20 more acts that should be in ahead of the Pretenders. The Go-Go's are right there at that cut line. Again, influential, yes. But look at their catalog of music, and really, you tell me, is it that outstanding? Is it better than Styx? I would say hell no. But again, the Go-Go's more influential, more groundbreaking. So they get credit for that. They get props for that. Think about it, kids. Of course, There are plenty of other acts going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, especially this year with Carly Simon and Lionel Richie and the Eurythmics. Let's put it this way. As much as I rip on the Pretenders, and I don't despise the Pretenders, I actually like the Pretenders, but I just don't think they never left a big enough impression on rock history. And I'm picky. They never left enough impression on a rock history to be in the Rock Hall of Fame, but I'm putting them in ahead of the Eurythmics and Carly Simon and Lionel Richie any time, any day of the week, twice on Sunday. So keep that in mind. All right, that'll do it for segment 1. Coming up segment 2, we've got reviews of Different Worlds, the debut album from Skills, and new singles from Wilco and the Black Moods. Hang out a little bit, won't you? Looking like a wonderful Friday night here where I am. Hope it is for you as well. Stay tuned. The Fortress will be right back. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Fortress of Rock podcast with me, the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Of course, that was segment 1, the news of the world, our tribute to Freddie Mercury and Queen, where we look back at the past week in rock and roll and all the news and all the controversies that you deserve to know about. Next up is the heart of the show, the meat and potatoes, breakdown, where we are going to review all the new songs, all the new albums, all the new concert tours, the shows that I've seen personally. Stay tuned for that. Of course, we're now available on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Hang out, kids. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Fortress of Rock. Segment 2, as always, is Breakdown, our tribute to Tom Petty, our album and song reviews. I can't quite put my finger on whether I was looking forward to this album, was worried about this album, scared. It's been sitting out there for months, looming, waiting. Frontiers Records chief Serafino Perugino, I hope I'm not butchering his name. Could be Perugino, last name. And I love his record label. I do. They have been trying to keep a lot of these old school bands alive, giving them record contracts, distributing their CDs here in America as well as overseas. Night Ranger, I know. I believe Whitesnake. So for that, I will be eternally grateful. But I'm not sure if he is really the kind of guy who should be in the quote-unquote star-making business. And that's what leads us into the band Skills. Again, I've known this album has been coming out for quite a while. We've talked about the first single, Stop the World, and I was not necessarily overwhelmingly positive about it. Brad Gillis of Night Ranger on lead guitar, right there. You know you've got me. You know I'm going to get sucked in. because of how much I love Night Ranger and Brad Gillis. Then you throw in Billy Sheehan, formerly of Mr. Big, and way back in the 80s, of course, the bass player in David Lee Roth's solo band. You bring in the drummer from Giant. And then, of course, this is where things get a little bit hairy. No pun intended. This whole group, Skills, that Serafino Perugino, again, apologies on the name if I'm butchering it. This whole band that he put together under the moniker Skills is all meant to promote this young singer from South America he discovered, Renan Zonta. If you've seen pictures of this guy, go on Spotify, you play one of their songs on your TV. I know the Spotify interface works differently on different apps, whether you're on the phone, the laptop, the TV. But if you watch it on the TV, I watch it through the Fire Stick. They will show you fairly updated, if they have them, band photos while they're playing their songs. So when you play Skills, you'll see a picture of the band. And the lead singer is obviously much, much younger than the other three members. And of course, he's got neck tattoos. He's got a knife with a snake coiled around it. Got gauges in his ears. So I'm immediately thinking, why isn't this guy singing for a more modern band? He seems like he would fit in more with a Five Finger Death Punch type band or Korn or something like that. And kudos to the kid if it's because he loves the 80s hard rock sound. But as we get ready here to go track by track through Different Worlds, the debut album from Skills, I will tell you that this is my worst fears realized, as it is a generic, underwhelming effort. If this album did not have solid guitar work, and I'm not saying exemplary, solid guitar work from Brad Gillis, it would be a complete dumpster fire. It is riddled with cliches. It is not original to me in the least. As we go through the 11 songs on Different Worlds, I'll kind of explain as we go what I mean. First track out of the gate is Escape Machine. Weak, generic song. And again, the chorus, Ride Like the Wind. How many hundreds upon hundreds of times do we have to hear Ride Like the Wind in a song? Please come up with something new and different. It just doesn't work anymore. It's been done to death. 40 years plus of Ride Like the Wind, Poison, Ride the Wind. Good Lord, we go back to yacht rock Christopher Cross's Ride Like the Wind, which might be the best example of a great song using Ride Like the Wind. Second song might be the best song on the album, and that's not saying much. Blame It on the Night has a little bit more fire to it. Zonta's generic vocals change and shift and morph a little bit. So he actually sounds more like Sebastian Bach on this song, which again gives it a little more fire, gives it a little more power. But again, it's still not a great song. It's tolerable. As is song 3, the title track, Different Worlds. Mildly catchy chorus. But again, nothing special. Decent at best. Then track 4 is just the beginning of the ultimate end for Skills, in my opinion. Losing the Track is a melodramatic, awful song. Song 5, Writings on the Wall, pretty much more of the same from track 4. Again, generic lyrics. No surrender, no surrender, no surrender. Springsteen sang, no surrender. Triumph did Never Surrender. Again, let's move on. If you're not at the level of these acts I've talked about, then you've got to come up with something better, something different, something more creative when it comes to lyrics, instead of recycling cliches like Ride Like the Wind and No Surrender. And titles like Blame It on the Night. Or titles like Song 6, Show Me the Way. Or Song 7, Just When I Needed You. Songs 6 and 7 sound like warmed over, bottom of the barrel Bon Jovi trash heap songs that couldn't even make the cut to get on one of their albums. And you guys should know how I feel about Bon Jovi right now after seeing their awful, terrible show in Indianapolis last month. Song 8, Need to Fall. Brad Gillis has a nice guitar intro on this song, but again, after that, bleh, nothing special. Song 9 is the lead single, Stop the World. Moderately catchy, again, just like the title track, Different Worlds. Those two songs are probably the most accessible, moderately catchy songs that remind you of the best of 80s hard rock. Song 10 is Hearts of Stone. Again, another wishy-washy tune. The chorus is actually okay. It's kind of catchy. Then the final track, track 11, Don't Break My Heart. Again, wow. What a creative title. I liked Brad Gillis's opening riff again, this time reminiscent of some of the stuff he did with Ozzy Osbourne, to my ears. But the song itself is pretty bad. Hardly a ringing endorsement for Skills, Different Worlds. Depressing in that I did have a little bit of hope that this could be a great, fun, even if it was a one-off effort to kind of rekindle that 80s hair metal magic. Unfortunately, it was not to be. And this Renan Zonta, I think his voice is very, very bland. Maybe I'm off on this, but after listening to Different Worlds 3 or 4 times, like I mentioned, at times it sounds like Bon Jovi. On his best song, he sounded more like Sebastian Bach. But overall, he reminded me of Lenny Wolf, the lead singer from Kingdom Come, another band that tried to rip off that late 70s, 80s rock vibe. And they were probably even more successful than what Skills has pulled off here. But is anybody really going to say Kingdom Come was a great band? Is anybody going to say Lenny Wolf was a great singer? So if Kingdom Come and Lenny Wolf were better than Skills and Renan Zonta, what does that say? That pretty much sums up all you need to know about an underwhelming, hopefully one and done effort from the quote unquote supergroup Skills. Couple new songs for you this week. Luckily, these two songs are much better in varying degrees than anything that you would find on Different Worlds. First up, back-to-back weeks reviewing songs from Wilco. Last week, we reviewed Falling Apart Right Now, the first single off of their double album that's coming up, Cruel Country. Second single is already out, Tired of Taking It Out on You. Little bit more like the traditional Wilco. Tired of Taking It Out on You is a little more downbeat than the initial release. Falling Apart Right Now, a friend of mine compared it to the Traveling Wilburys, which I thought was a pretty good comparison. But he's not a Wilco guy. I have actually listened to a lot of Wilco, and I would say Tired of Taking It Out on You is a little bit more what you would expect from Jeff Tweedy and company. That being said, it's not a bad song. It's actually pretty solid, moderately catchy. I'm still looking forward to hearing Cruel Country. Tired of Taking It Out on You does not discourage me. So I guess that's the best I can say about it. I'm not saying it's exemplary. I'm not saying it's a phenomenal effort, but I'll take it. It's good enough. Looking forward to more from Cruel Country and Wilco. Then, of course, to wrap up the breakdown segment, my current guilty pleasure hidden treasure band, the Black Moods. And when I saw them in concert, going on 5-6 years ago at least, maybe 7, opening for Roger Clyne and the Peacemakers up in Kalamazoo, Michigan, I got sucked in. I was mesmerized. I was hypnotized. The Black Moods, if you have not listened to them, are phenomenal. To me, they are the hope for the future of true, solid meat and potatoes, not meathead rock and roll. Fourth album coming out soon, Into the Night. Fourth single just released, The Cure. And this might be the best of the 4 songs so far. I listened to all 4 singles getting ready here for the podcast in order from newest, The Cure, to oldest, and I can see a steady progression. Usually, of course, after the first one or two songs, you start to hear a decline in quality. These songs from the Black Moods keep getting better and better and better. The last song, Hollywood, was fantastic, and I did not believe they had another song in them that could be better. I was expecting Hollywood to end up being my favorite track off the new upcoming album, and now I say no. I say no. The Cure is great. It is a great, great song. See, the Black Moods do a wonderful job of what Skills cannot seem to figure out. The Black Moods aren't groundbreaking in their lyrics. They're not singing songs about trying to save the world. And they'll sneak cliches in here and there now and then. But if you do it in the right way, if you have enough muscle, enough rock and roll energy behind it, then you let it slide as a fan, as a listener. Check out The Cure by the Black Moods. Check out all of the 4 singles from the upcoming album, Into the Night. The Black Moods are phenomenal. And that'll do it for Breakdown. Segment 3 coming up. Normally, I look back at rock anniversaries and birthdays, but since we had to fill some time in the first segment, this week, I want to go back. We'll be exclusively looking at rock and roll anniversaries from this day and this past week in rock history. So hang out with the Maestro for a little bit longer here on this Friday night, will you? I'll be right back with some good stuff going back to 1954 all the way through to 2013. See you in a minute. All right, now that we've looked at the current state of music in our breakdown segment, it is time to climb into the DeLorean and travel back in time to look back at moments in rock and roll history, birthdays, deaths, anniversaries of song and album releases. It is time for I Wanna Go Back, our tribute to Eddie Money. Stay tuned. And as always, we're on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public, anywhere where you listen to your favorite podcasts. Hey, welcome back to the Fortress of Rock. I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane. This is I Wanna Go Back, a tribute to Eddie Money, our segment where we look back at the past, honor those who did great things, who were born on this day, this week. Once again, of course, change things up a little bit. This week, the birthdays have already been taken care of. So what we're going to do here, because we got a lot of them, and we're going to talk about important dates in rock history. For the most part, we're going to stick with today. I don't like to go through the entire week. I figure as we go through year after year, the calendar will shift. So we will pick up important birthdays, important anniversaries in future episodes on other dates when they fall on a Friday. But I do have one exception here. I do have one. that I had to bring in here. Even though it's May the 20th as we're taping, I did need to bring up that this past week, May the 17th, 2017, 5 years ago, was one of the saddest days in rock history. It was Soundgarden's final concert. Of course, we know what happened later on. After this show, Chris Cornell, my favorite singer of all time, I've always said my dream rock band would be Chris Cornell on vocals, Neil Peart on drums, Eddie Van Halen on guitar, probably Sting on bass. Could make a case for Geddy Lee, but I'm trying to go with 4 different bands, 4 different influences. Not trying to put a curse on you, Sting, but you're the only one of those 4 still standing. Again, it seems like every week I find a reason to hate the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Why aren't Soundgarden in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame already? I know they've only been eligible for a few years, but still. You put Pearl Jam in on the first ballot. You couldn't wait to put Pearl Jam in. And to me, Soundgarden has had every bit of influence and every bit of success that Pearl Jam has had from the grunge era. It is time to put Soundgarden in the Rock Hall of Fame and honor Chris Cornell. Before we move on to all the significant anniversaries for today, May the 20th, this is the time where I always acknowledge my sources. My 3 big sources are ultimateclassicrock.com, the best rock and roll website out there, Van Halen News Desk, for all you VH fanatics like me out there. Unfortunately, they don't really update all that much anymore. Maybe 2 or 3 times a week, but when they find something interesting, I'll let you know. And finally, I mentioned last week, thisdayinmusic.com. I don't know, maybe it was my computer. Something was wrong last week and I couldn't access them for a couple days. But it looks like everything has been resolved either on their end or my end. So they're back up and running. Great source for especially this segment, birthdays and anniversaries in rock history. Again, I always expand on the ideas. I always give opinions, and those opinions are mine and mine alone. All right, let's go back to 1954, May the 20th. The song Rock Around the Clock was released. Many people look at this song as the launching pad for the rock era. Of course, Bill Haley and the Comets. It's before even my time to really judge. I was 11 years. I was 11 years after born and conceived 11 years after Rock Around the Clock was released. So I can't speak for its influence. Some of the much older people in the audience might be able to expound on it a little bit more. For me, the big thing about Rock Around the Clock for me was I always remember that it was the theme song to Happy Days in the first season. And it fit. It fit for a fledgling show trying to capture the spirit of that era. And of course, we know Happy Days never gets credit for being as influential as everybody knows it was a popular show, but jump the shark. Everybody knows that term now. When something jumps the shark, that came from Happy Days. When Fonzie literally tried to jump a shark with his motorcycle, that is where the phrase jumping the shark comes from. And to this day, we still use it in our society all these decades and decades later. And again, circling back, Rock Around the Clock was such an appropriate song for the first season of that show. I didn't have a problem with them switching to the sunnier, happier Happy Days theme from season 2 on, as the show did tend to get a little bit less serious, a little bit more lighthearted. Moving up to May 20th, 1967, one of my favorite 60s songs. I have never claimed to be a huge fan of 60s music. We just talked about 1954, Rock Around the Clock, possibly launching, in many people's estimation, the rock and roll era. The 50s and 60s music, to me, 64, when the Beatles came to America, was really where everything started. I'm sorry, Elvis Presley fans, Buddy Holly fans, Bill Haley fans. But for me, the year before I was born, that's when rock and roll really started with the Beatles. But again, 50s and 60s rock music never really connected with me. Now, as I've gotten older and gone back, trying to find things to listen to, since new music blows goats, in my opinion, for the most part, you find songs, you find acts that maybe you passed over when you shouldn't have. So May 20th, 1967, number one song in the U.S., The Young Rascals' Groovin'. Groovin's one of those songs I'm talking about. Groovin' is a nice, cool, yes, kind of a hippie tune. As much as I love to use hippie in a derogatory fashion, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it means just kick back, take it easy, smoke them if you got them, grab a brew, and relax. We all need to relax more. And so a song like Groovin', we could still use that song to this day to help remind us that we just need to chillax a little bit. Jumping forward in time to 1978, May the 20th, Sir Paul McCartney also hit number one in the US with his song With a Little Luck. I believe that was his 6th number one song in the US. Significant only really because I remember it being one of the early songs that I listened to on Casey Kasem's American Top 40. I know I've mentioned how that was an early formative experience for me in my musical upbringing. And I remember Casey mentioning when With a Little Luck hit number one. May the 20th, 1997. Here we go, kids. Now it's time to have some real fun and real debate. The second Foo Fighters album, The Color and the Shape, was released on this day. Let the debate begin. Let the arguments begin. Is this the greatest Foo Fighters album ever? Of course, we know the first album was basically, even though it was called Foo Fighters, was Dave Grohl doing everything, minimal help. And then, of course, when The Color and the Shape came out, this was more the Foo Fighters collective that we know and love now, of course. I don't want to go off on the Taylor Hawkins tangent, but we all know about that situation. I will be the skeptic here. Gee, shocking, right? I have always deferred to Echo's Silence, Patience, and Grace as by far, to me, the best Foo Fighters album out there. Let It Die, The Pretender, many people defer to this album, The Color and the Shape. And I'll tell you why I don't, where others do. There are two key reasons why. Everlong and My Hero. Now, if you look at the 13 songs on The Color and the Shape, I'm not going to go track by track on this. We're not going to review an album from 1997, but overall, the 13-song track lineup is pretty much about as solid as you can get. Lots of underappreciated songs on this album, including Enough Space, Hey Johnny Park, My Poor Brain, and of course, Monkey Wrench. I think we can all agree Monkey Wrench is fantastic. Monkey Wrench is awesome. But the debate comes in with Everlong and My Hero. And this is where, again, I'm going to be negative Nancy. I do not think that Everlong or My Hero are especially strong songs. I'm not saying they're bad songs. And Everlong would be the better of the two to me. Everlong is good. Everlong is really, really good. But it's not, in my opinion, great. Now, My Hero, I have problems with. And I know everybody out there gasping, how can you say that about My Hero? That's one of the Foo's greatest songs. No, it's not. Not in the Maestro's opinion. It is not. It's not even close. I would not even put My Hero in a list, personal list, of the top 40 Foo Fighters songs. I just don't like it. I have never understood the appeal of My Hero. And I think, to me, that's why The Color and the Shape does not stand up next to something like Echo's Silence, Patience, and Grace. Again, Leave a comment. Check out the Facebook page. Drop me a line, because I'm sure there's plenty of you out there who will dispute my opinions on my hero. But again, as far as the color and the shape overall goes, very, very good album. Probably one of their three best. I will say that. May the 20th, 2012, Robin Gibb passed away, of course, one of the three members of the Bee Gees. And the Bee Gees, really, in my opinion, get a lot of flack, get a lot of grief when they really shouldn't. You've got to take them for what they were. And they were creative. They were smart. They changed with the times, especially, obviously, when it came to disco and Saturday Night Fever. Again, I'll throw it out there. I like the Bee Gees a lot. Don't love them, like them a lot, respect them, admire what they did. But if you look at record sales and their influence through changing musical times from the 60s, 70s, early 80s, dare I say the Bee Gees were one of the biggest bands of all time. There are some out there who will side with me, some out there who will laugh and scoff. You be the judge. And then a year later, May the 20th, 2013, the keyboardist for The Doors, Ray Manzarek, passed away. I have never been able to delve into the Doors catalog as deeply as I would have liked. There's so much music out there, and when you latch onto something, you tend to listen to it over and over. You dig into catalogs. And the Doors, as much as I love Jim Morrison's voice, we talked about Chris Cornell earlier. Jim Morrison, even though Cornell is my number one lead singer, Jim Morrison would easily be top 10, if not top 5 of all time. Love Jim Morrison's voice. And of course, a lot of the Doors songs are fantastic. We talked about Rock Around the Clock and how it related to Happy Days. How about the song from the Doors, The End, in Apocalypse Now? One of the most powerful segments in cinematic history. Roadhouse Blues. The Doors version of Roadhouse Blues, one of the greatest party songs ever. You've got Light My Fire, Love Me Two Times. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time, with the 10 to 20 years I've probably got left on this planet, to get in and start listening to some of the Doors albums from front to back, beginning to end, and really start exploring all that they did. All right, kids, that's it for segment 3. That'll wrap up our look back at the anniversaries on this day and this week in rock history. Coming up, our final segment, where we will look forward to our reviews coming up over the next couple weeks. Already alluded to one or two of them, but I will condense it. I will sharpen it up, as we wrap it up for this week on the Fortress of Rock. Hang out for a couple more minutes. I'll be right back. Well, we hope you enjoyed our trip back in time, looking back at the anniversaries, the classic moments in rock and roll history. But of course, the DeLorean works both ways. So now we have to move forward. The last segment here, as always, on the Fortress of Rock with me, the Maestro Kevin Crane. Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. It's all about the future. What's coming out here in the next month or two? What songs? What albums? What concert tours? That's why we call it Wrap It Up. Thanks to the fabulous Thunderbirds. Thanks to you for hanging out. Here comes our final segment. All right, everybody, it is time to wrap it up. The fourth and final segment, as always, every week here on the Fortress of Rock. Of course, Wrap It Up is a tribute to the fabulous Thunderbirds. I'm the Maestro Kevin Crane. Looking ahead to what we have got to review in the coming weeks here on the Fortress of Rock. In terms of albums, we know Def Leppard's Diamond Star Halos is coming out in a few weeks. We'll obviously be reviewing that. Still debating whether or not I want to review the new Black Keys album, Dropout Boogie. I'll give you a firm maybe on that. Now, 2 albums, 1 EP, and 1 album, I should say, that we will definitely be looking at here over the next 2 weeks. The Black Crowes cover album, 1972, with 6 songs from the 1972. We will definitely have that for you on the next episode of The Fortress. And then the week after that, it looks like we're going to have Craig Finn, the lead singer from the Hold Steady, his latest solo album, A Legacy of Rentals, just came out today on the 20th of May as we record this podcast. So you're going to have to give me a week or two to digest that. So for the next 3 shows, it looks like next week, Black Crowes. Week after that, Craig Finn. Week after that, Def Leppard. Still no concerts yet. Got to get to mid-June, and then things will really start to heat up, and we will probably have concert reviews for you each and every week for the rest of the summer once we get to mid-June. Couple new songs we're going to be reviewing next week for you from classic 80s bands. Third single from Journey's upcoming album, Freedom, is Let It Rain. We'll have a review of that for you next week. And the third single from Def Leppard's Diamond Star Halos. One last taste next week before we review the full album the following week. Third single is Fire It Up. So breakdown next week, we'll have the Black Crowes, Journey, and Def Leppard for you. If we get anything at the last minute, some surprises, who knows? We'll throw that in as well. But as always, it has been a blast to talk music with you. Never get tired of doing this. Each and every week, getting to sit down for an hour plus with you guys and discuss the music that we all love. Let's do it again next Friday night, shall we? I am the Maestro Kevin Crane. Once again, thank you very much for tuning in to the Fortress of Rock. We'll check you out next week for episode 41. Take care and have a great weekend, everybody.